afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Committee on Education. Hope you're all dried up from this past weekend. I understand we might be in for more rain, so hopefully we don't have another rain day, 2 rain days in a month. Must be historical, right? So anyway, with that being said, you are here at the Committee on Education. Today is March 16th, 1 p.m. in room 229. And this meeting is being live streamed. And if there's any difficulties, we will reconvene on Wednesday, 1 p.m. in this room, 229. And so I will want to let testifiers know you have a minute to give your testimony, and we will ask questions if we need more information. So welcome my committee members. To my right, Senator Hashimoto from Maui, and to my left, Senator DeCourt from Waianae. Senator Kidani is out ill today, so we wish her well. And Senator Fukunaga may be in a little later. With that, we're going to start with our first item on the agenda, House Bill 1605, House Draft 1, relating to human and community resilience, appropriates funds to the University of Hawaii at Manoa College of Tropical Ag and Human Resilience for the development of its Human and Community Resilience Institute. First is Brian Miyamoto from the Hawaii Farm Bureau, right? Yeah, I have you down as first. Who am I to argue? You're in strong opposition, right?
Strong opposition. Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Sorry, Chair, I expected to go after the University of Hawaii. That would explain everything about this bill and then the Institute and how important it is, talking about food security and all those numbers. What level of food insecurity we have here in Hawaii, what level of nutrition security we have in Hawaii, which this bill is addressing, trying to combine all the different programs, and again, talking about food security, nutrition security, and I was going to say I am the role model for nutrition security and probably the one that can best talk about nutrition, obviously. But this is an extremely important issue. We talk about farm to families, farm to food bank, but I think the university and CTAR specifically can go a long way in helping us become more food secure and more nutritionally secure, doing the outreach and combining these programs that maybe is a little bit more spread out than it should be. So again, we are in strong support of this measure, and it is one of the Farm Bureau's priorities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, good job. I'm going to have questions for you after. Okay, now we have the University of Hawaii, Parwanda from the university.
Aloha Chair and Aloha Chair and the members of the committee. Thank you for allowing us to have this testimony. And my name is Parvinder Grewal. I'm the Dean of the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience. I just want to make a few points about the food and nutritional security in Hawaii. We have over 30% of our households still food insecure. The pandemic has been long gone, and it's actually increasing since then. What we are trying to do after the loss of SNAP-Ed, we lost 13 positions in that. What we are trying to do here is to combine our different programs that kind of either directly or peripherally focus on this particular issue so that we can have a more data-driven and community-based approach to this problem so that we can uproot the food and nutritional insecurity from our communities. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. On Zoom, we have Hunter Hevelin?
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you. Don't know that I said that correctly. And we have a number of others that sent in testimony in support. I'm not going to read all their names. Anyone here in this room that would like to testify on this measure? Okay, hearing none. Brian, why don't you come back up? I have a question. Members, we are open for questions. Maybe you can explain greater about the nutrition security. For all the time that I've been aware, I'm not sure what exactly that we're doing when it comes to nutrition. I see so many people that and even our kids in school, not really eating the types of foods, nutritional food, myself included. So can you explain to me and everybody else about where our money's going and how is this nutrition getting to the public actually?
I thank you, Senator Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau. I think that's what this maybe can help address, because we do want healthier eating. Healthy eating should lead to better outcomes, less pressure on our healthcare system, creating better habits in children. So again, this being a community-based, data-driven program can address that. We want healthier eating. And healthier eating from the agriculture standpoint, we believe translates into more local foods in our
But how does
schools.
the data then translate? I mean, it's one thing we collect the data, we all know we should be eating better, we all go to the doctor, and my cholesterol level is very high. Part of it is for everybody's knowledge, is hereditary. But my eating habits, especially during session time, on the run, we don't get to eat normal meals. But I don't know how much data you're gonna get that is gonna change my way of eating at this point.
Thank you, Senator. I don't think it's just a data collection, it's the community-based component of this. And part of what the university does, or the CTAR, is their extension program. And so the outreach and extension isn't just for farmers and ranchers. They do have other activities that they can reach out. Example is their 4-H program also that we have at the University of Hawaii, which works with not just our livestock students. People think 4-H is just, things they see at the county fairs or the farm fair, but there's also this nutrition or more, I wouldn't say home ec component to 4-H. So it's a broader program. Sorry, Senator. And so again, it is getting the data, working with community, and trying to implement possibly some of these programs so that we can have better outcomes especially from our youth. Right? I just saw something recently about food, school lunch or food programs in Japan and what they do. And the culture is created when the students are extremely young and they develop these better eating habits so that they have them as adults also. And, ideally, that's something that hopefully Hawaii could do and lead. So again, that's the nutrition side, and then also has a food security side. But nutrition, and I think we all would want to eat healthier.
I'm gonna ask Parwinder if he can come upstate. I think that's really. And how much money are we talking about? I know we lost 13 food educators, and we want to get back these individuals. So how many, what are we talking about?
Only $0.9 million.
I'm sorry, 9 million?
0.9.
0.9.
Yes. And it is, if I can address this particular issue, there is education component included in this, which is to build capacity in K through 12 schools about nutritional education. That would be directly having, working with our Department of Education to include a required module or a course in nutrition and healthy eating, and also developing a master nutrition education volunteer program so that we can have sustainability of this program. Because those people will be trained to go out into the communities where they live so that they can influence this aspect. So it is children's or our K through 12 kids is the highest priority, but also parents. So 4-H program is also included in this because they are doing lots of work now, more and more towards teaching children how to develop a recipe, how to cook, and so that early on it gets ingrained that healthy eating is important for their performance in the school and their development.
Okay, so 0.9 million, does that include the fringe and everything else that go with it?
Yes.
0.9 million, and that's sustaining every year required.
Correct.
Okay, so going to school, we had nutritional classes, we had nutrition. I don't know that made an impact, and more so today. Back then, we had home economics, and so we learned to cook, or the boys learned to cook in those classes. But again, I just have a hard time for that kind of money, that when you say that, we've had 4-H programs too when we went to school, and they still have 4-H programs. But when you say that the more data, community-based, I still don't understand, train people going into the community, how that really translates other than education, because you've got all of the advertising going on TV, all of the sweets and candies and sodas and everything else that is out there. No matter how much the school puts out nutritional lunches, they get thrown away. And you still see the kids who cannot afford school lunches go to McDonald's or fast foods. So how does this actually translate into better nutrition? I mean, it sounds good. It's so hard to vote against something like this, but when you come down to it, is the money actually the value of changing people's way of nutrition and eating, that this is all of these positions are going to change that?
So this approach is, as Brian said, is community-based. We are bringing to bear our care centers across the state, 22 of them, so that we can engage with the local community in a way that it is a partnership, it is beneficial to both sides, and provide not only the education. Food as medicine is one of the new programs that we are now working with the medical school. And this kind of approach, if the issues that are identified, we will pivot to address those and assess our impact simultaneously. That's the difference moving forward. We believe we lost the SNAP-Ed program because the impact assessment may have not been as optimal as we would have wanted. And this is an important issue, as you know. It is something that we must try, and we are trying to take a different approach to address this particular issue. We provide from our stations, last year we provided over 20,000 pounds of fresh produce to different communities, food banks on all our islands, and on Oahu over 16,000 pounds of food. So we are saying is, if community identifies a community garden is needed in a community, we would enable our own place, create a community garden, because it's one person at a time, changing lives one person at a time. It is not easy, as you know. Yes, people will ignore. The 4-H Youth Development Program is also changing. It's evolving nationally. It was outside the school curriculum program. Now it's entering into the school. The new movement, it will be adopted into the school curriculum, the 4-H Youth Development Program. That builds leadership, that builds ability to take control of their lives early. We have to address this issue.
Let me open it up to questions. Senator.
So when you're referring to the schools, are you referring to Department of Education?
Correct. Any local schools that we.
So this program is going to, the success of this program is going to be based on the implementation through the Department of Education.
That is one component. So I just wanted to highlight that component of this, because it is also partnering with government institutions, government organizations to work collaboratively, take community by community, GIS-based, data-driven approach to address the hurdles that may be. Sometimes it may not be just food, but the people do not have a transportation to get there, or the access to food is not there, or the access is such that it is not healthy food.
Sure. So I think the concern I have is right now, Department of Education is not meeting their own goals of having locally produced foods, 30% by 30 or something, 2030. And then also, I think we have a supply shortage here with the amount of healthy selection of foods to be able to supply families that would choose to have a better nutritional meal. So I think that if right now the bill is calling for 12 positions, and if I recall, there's no real data to see where local communities are at currently so that we can have a projected goal of this is where the community is at. 5% in this particular region is not eating healthy, and that's reflected through diabetes rates or heart conditions and those kinds of things, to be able to justify the bill that says by the end of 5 years, we're hoping to increase the nutritional rate. Do you folks have any of those numbers?
So we can put together, because there are different agencies focus on their own piece of work. For example, on Big Island, food insecurity is even higher than Oahu. So information is available, we can bring it together. And that's where we want to start with this. Take that kind of approach, build community leadership to address this issue. Otherwise, we just, 30% already, we might be even higher moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Because prices are also going up. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, but you're talking about also like teaching new habits and
Correct.
day-to-day lifestyle. So that's an even longer
Yes, these
goal that you're
things-
trying to accomplish,
Correct.
not just putting the foods in front of them and saying, hey, we're going to give you
Correct.
a box of vegetables, once a week.
Correct.
That comes with the education of maybe cooking the right meals and so on and so forth. So
It is actually developing the taste for that. It is our own kids. It took time, but now they are there. It's hard, no question. But if it is parents, if it is community leaders, if it is few student champions, right? And governmental agencies, legislature, everybody working together to be able to address this issue. Only then we will make a difference. I give you that everyone wouldn't ever comply or eat. We all have our issues.
I will let you know, though, if your program is kind of trying to be funneled through the Department of Education, I would have concerns about that. But thank you, Chair. Thank you.
And we are working very closely with the department on the regional kitchen, the new recipes that we have created now. I hope that it will make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Real quick, so I'm reading your testimony. So you said 13 positions are gone from Food Snap, or the Ed Snap, is that what it is? Snap Ed. Snap Ed.
Yeah.
So based on that, I would assume that's how the genesis of the 12, right, that you're asking for?
It is actually quite a bit repackaged. It includes our 4H youth development program, because now we want to take that program to inside the school.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But what if you get some of the Snap Ed monies back? If we put the 12 onto the general fund and then the money starts flowing again, is there any overlap?
So only overlap would be our 4 community nutrition associate jobs, only 4 of those. The approach that we are taking here, SNAP-Ed at the federal level is no more. Yes.
For now.
Yeah, you can maybe
Right.
put some money now in this year. But that is then every year you have to find and scramble to find the money. And our goal is to actually train the trainer so that we can make a more sustainable approach. Not just the same person impacting 20 people a day or 100 people a month, that kind of
Okay.
thing.
So what if we don't start with 12? What would be the number other than 12?
I'm pulling together different programs from within the college to be able to bring everybody together.
Right. So I think what would be prudent before we go to conference, or if it gets that far, is we need to understand what the options are, right? In terms of, if in the first year, second year, third year of the rollout, in theory, the federal funds are going to be revisited. We could have a new Congress, new Senate, next year. Maybe some of these things might come back, but it'd be good just to understand, what are the options we might have. But I think 12 seems a lot. I understand you lost 13, but I think we gotta think through what can we give you in this tight budget year, right?
Yeah, in the tight budget here, if you can give me those remaining ones later, I could live with 8 for now.
8, no, that's still a lot, but okay. Well, hopefully we can continue looking at that. All right, thank you, Chair.
Really appreciate it. This is, for our people.
How long have you've had SNAP Ed from the feds? How long the program?
Over 20 years or so.
Okay, so over 20 years. So where's the data, or how has that changed in people's eating habits?
There are data available. We can make sure we can provide that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I
because
really want to see the money that we're spending or going to spend, and what is actually taking place? Because, again, it sounds good. You train these people, they go into the community. You talk about community base, but you're talking about 4 people going into the community. Okay, so they go into Kalihi, they talk with, the schools. The schools should be the one implementing nutrition in the school program. I don't know why we need these individuals to include it. Because I know when we went to school, we had the nutrition, we had, all the families, all the different ways to eat and so forth. But at the end of the day, didn't change the fact that my parents couldn't afford fresh produce. We ate canned goods. We ate what we could afford, and even when we could afford it, it's hard to prepare. People don't have the time to prepare. People are working, parents are working, they go fast foods, they buy, chicken, fried chicken, they go to Costco, they buy ready-made stuff. I mean, that's a lifestyle, and I don't know that having all of these funds and these individuals are going to change it until you change the world and people's way of living, which people have to work 2 jobs and their families, and so they end up not having the time to cook nutritious meals. So I just don't know how this translates. And my concern is getting the funding to the people who really need it at this point in time. Because people are living from paycheck to paycheck. People are not getting the types of support that they can, and the budget is so tight. And so, what are our priorities at this point? I know this takes a long time, but over 20 years, we've had SNAP Ed, and I don't necessarily see the impact that it has. Brian, can you relate to that?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we get it. And yes, but we believe that this is an approach, as the dean said, to start early, because we need to start somewhere. We got to address this.
This program.
And we're 20 years of SNAP Ed,
And we never,
and what are the outcomes?
yeah.
We understand
When did
it.
we start? Did you start 20 years ago on this?
Well-
I mean, we've been talking about nutrition forever, right?
Absolutely, and I think without criticizing anyone else, our dean is fairly new. And so the dean has an approach that he believes can help Hawaii, can help our keiki, can help our future by addressing nutrition. Nutrition, I agree. We grew up
We're all
eating
like that.
canned goods, spam and eggs for dinner. But we've got to address this, and we think this may be approach. Understand that budgets are tight, and it is something we appreciate you hearing it, Senator, because this is a conversation that I don't think we're having now. We're having a lot of food security conversations, right? But to add in the nutrition component, which is critically important, and how the agriculture can play a role in that also. I think that's at least a conversation that we're happy to have at this point. The outcomes of this program, it will be long-term.
And that's why I bring this up, because it always sounds good.
Yes.
Nutrition, we're going to go into the community-based, nutrition security. I mean, all of these are good buzzwords, but at the end of the day, how much is this really impacting? Are we getting results from it? And if we're not, then we need to really look at how can we best spend some of these fundings, because this is, once you do it, then, everybody protect their jobs, and you can't change the program.
Those are absolutely
Right.
very
So-
important
And
questions.
so now we have a federal program, and it goes away, and we've been relying on federals for too long for these nice-to-have programs, and now you want the state to take it over, and it's very difficult, because, the pie is only so big, And now you're adding on more. Who are we going to cut? Am I going to cut from our seniors? Am I going to cut from our nonprofits? Am I going to cut from our education? Where do I cut? The pie is only so big, right? So where am I going to come up with the funding for these additional positions? And not for one time, but in perpetuity, it seems, right?
Yes.
And it's not because we're not sensitive to nutrition and people eating balanced meals. I mean, you know, we're all guilty of it. Walk in any of our offices, you're going to see a whole pile of junk food that sustain us during the session. But again, and we're smart people. We're not, you know, I like to think we're smart.
Senator, if I may, we do want to change the world. We really do want to change the world, and we have to change the world. We can start right here in Hawaii, community by
Understand. If
community.
I got people starving, or I got people that
Right,
really need the
exactly,
funding, I don't know if that priority would be right now to change the world with $0.9 million at this point. So
It's
again,
a different approach that we are
Yeah,
proposing.
understand.
And it is through a partnership, not so much one-side education.
Understand.
side.
Well, maybe
And
you can
our
talk with our
generation-
athletics because they want 5 million for sports. So do we play sports before we do nutrition? How do we do that? Again, where are our priorities?
Yeah.
Where should
Our-
our priorities be?
Our generation actually is healthier than our younger generation because we had nutrition education. We were doing labor.
Yeah, but look how many people have cancer now. I mean, look how many people, we don't even know if that's related to nutrition or not.
Yeah, but
Okay, let's not belabor this. Thank you. No, we appreciate the good work you're doing, Dean. Again, you know, we make the hard decisions on what are we going to prioritize and what are we going to fund.
thank you. And we really appreciate what you do too.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Senate Bill 2171, House Draft 1, relating to the University of Hawaii, authorizes university to engage in enterprise-related activities for educational purposes under certain circumstances. Testifying, Denise Yoshimori Yamamoto. Denise, you're online.
Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Denise Yoshimori Yamamoto. I'm the Associate Vice President for the Community Colleges, and we support this bill. And I'm here for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Because Denise is the only one that signed up, nobody else. Members' questions? I do, it is. You want to explain it? Denise, again, what are the circumstances in which this bill would help?
So basically, it would allow us to really bring hands-on experience onto our campuses. We do things. We do this already to some degree with culinary arts. We want to do this and expand it with hospitality. It's really creating these lab environments, and our students would have almost like the next step before they get out into the workforce. Our Hospitality Academy at Maui is a really good example in that with CIP, we did renovate the building, we did the shell. And then what happened was we got our industry partners, the hotels, to come in and sponsor the rooms, and they outfitted the rooms at their cost. And so that was really good in that it saved us some money with the CIP, but it also provides our students with, just an actual real world sample room that they need to work in, kind of get trained in before they can start doing their actual internships at the hotels. But what we wanted to do was be able to bring in now guests, actual people from the community into that facility. But again, it's in no way will it ever mean to compete with private sector, but it allows us at least to generate some revenue. But again, more so is for the hands-on training.
So why do you need this bill, though? Can't you do that now?
Well, what's happening is that we have to go through actual hurdles just like any other commercial entity. We have to get the proper permits in place and things like that, which kind of drags it out. So it doesn't help us really to react as fast as we would like to. And so this bill would definitely help us to be able to pivot faster to react to workforce and be able to support it. Because every time, yeah, there's always the lag with CIP because construction takes so long. But just even aligning programmatically, being able to start would be great.
Okay, well, sometimes we pass these measures, it seems like it's innocent enough, and then there's unintended consequences that happens. I'm looking right now where you say activities authorized under this section shall be exempt from county zoning and ordinances, land use restrictions and requirements for special permits, conditional use permits, or similar county level land use approvals. I mean, this is broad kinds of exemptions, which I'm not sure how that would, what it would entail as far as some kind of activities down the line that all of a sudden we say, well, that bill was never meant for that to happen.
I mean, I think that the one hopefully will bring a little bit of comfort is just the fact that this would never on a campuses be able to scale up, to be anything that is competing with commercial industry. But again, but keep in mind too, we did not intend for this to exempt us from any type of building permit. Yeah. So definitely if it's a kitchen or anything like that, it would be permitted as such, and we would get the proper approvals for that type of operation. So never to jeopardize health and safety. It's more so to allow us through educational use to start our training much faster.
Yeah, again, I just don't see how you folks are doing it now. So I'm not exactly sure. Perhaps as we move forward, if it gets that far to conference, that you guys can give us more specifics. Because to me, this is broad language, and that much of this you can already do. I know, yeah, maybe it's not as simple as you want it to be.
It takes longer. That's all it is.
Okay.
But definitely we can come see you. I mean, we can give you more specifics. Definitely we'll work on that.
I think this bill really needs that.
Okay.
Anything?
Thank you.
Go ahead. No? Okay, no other questions. Let's move on. Senate Bill 1873, House Draft 2, relating to the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii, exempts one strategic planning retreat of the Board of Regents per year from open meeting requirements if certain conditions are met, requires a member of the Board of Regents to complete a governance training and attend training at least once every 2 years thereafter, requires a candidate advisory council to ensure that all candidates presented to the governor for nomination have certain subject matter experience and are not registered lobbyists who have lobbied on matters pertaining to the University of Hawaii, exempts the financial disclosures on the Board of Regents as mandated by the state ethics code from being made public, requires the Board of Regents in collaboration with the candidate advisory committee council to submit annual reports to the legislature. And we have a number of people signed up. Okay, Robert Harris for the State Ethics Commission. Mr. Harris, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Robert Harris. On behalf of the Hawaii State Ethics Commission, we are opposed to specifically Section 6 of this bill, which would prevent the legislature, fellow regents, UH staff, or stakeholders from knowing of financial conflicts of interest on matters before the University of Hawaii Board of Regents. Removing this information means that conflicts of interest will not be identified in real time. It allows essentially for the Ethics Commission to try to identify conflicts of interest after the fact. By that point, decisions may have already been made and the harm to the public may have already been occurred. Eliminating transparency here solves a problem that does not appear to exist. There has not been a lack of qualified applicants for the Board of Regents specifically. However, the harm caused specifically with an institution that controls billions of dollars and is a central part of Hawaii's economy, eliminating the transparency, it runs counter both to national standards and other similar institutions such as the University of California, which does also have public disclosure requirements. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Ben Krebs, an opposition from Public First Law Center. Let's see, testifying for the University of Hawaii Board of Regents, Gabe Lee, Chair of the Regents.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. Gabe Lee, Chair of the Board of Regents, testifying in favor of this bill. In particular, the exemption from the Sunshine Law would facilitate a more meaningful discussion among the regents as well as management outside of the rules of the Sunshine Law, or mostly one-on-one conversations. And the exemption from the public disclosure of the financial statements will widen the pool of qualified applicants, especially in the expertise of large-scale organizational management, finance, accounting, and budget. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, let's see, Carlota Moreno with comments from Office of Informational Practice, Douglas Miller, in opposition, League of Women Voters, and Sterling Morita for the Professional Chapter of Society of Professional Journalists in opposition. Anyone here else wishing to testify on this measure? Hearing none, members, we're open to questions. Okay, so Gabe, if you can come forward. So we're talking about a one-time exemption, right, for this retreat from the
Yes.
Sunshine Law. How long would this retreat take?
I would say it would be a couple hours. Yes.
Okay, so we're not talking about 1 day or 1 week. We're
Yeah.
talking about hours.
Yes.
So like an 8-hour period or 6-hour
Even
period.
less. I
Even
would say,
less.
Yes.
Okay. So when you talk about the disclosure, I know people complain about it. So you're saying that if we didn't have disclosure, the more people would then apply to sit on the regents?
Yes. When the requirement went in, I think it was around 12 years ago, during Governor Abercrombie's term, we, the regents lost 2 regents before it went into effect. And when I approach people, especially on the large-scale organizational management, those type of expertise, the first thing they talk to me about is the public disclosure of the financial statements. Now, for me, I was on the Board of Accountancy for 8 years before that. So I knew, I was filing the public disclosures, and I knew what was disclosed. And when I try to explain to other people, well, your retirement accounts aren't in there, and your deferred comp is not in there, and all this is not in there, and the only thing that you're doing is your taxable accounts and those type of things, they just say, forget it, I'm not gonna do it. It's just too much on the table for people to see.
Okay, but you feel that it's been around for so long that it seems like we are getting qualified candidates, but I don't know, you think people are now, I mean, most of them are required now, right,
Yeah.
across the board, so.
I think we could get a wider pool of candidates.
Is that gonna change how the Board of Regents approach things?
I can't guarantee that, but
I know it's a $1 million
Yes,
question,
yes,
but,
yes.
okay, members' questions? Senator Decort.
Thank you. So, Chair, when you had mentioned earlier in your oral testimony that these retreats would require the board to have meaningful discussions, also you had shared that you can have more one-on-one conversations. What is preventing you from having those meaningful discussions and one-on-one conversations now, publicly being documented? I'm concerned what those conversations would entail.
Right now, we really, it's hard for us to get a feel of the entire board. So right now, based on Sunshine Law, we have to talk to, have one-on-one conversations, and but to understand where the body of 11 regents really feel about a certain topic, I think something like that is harder in a public session, and especially open discussion with senior management. A lot of this is strategic. You know, it's just like the larger publicly traded companies, their strategic planning sessions are not open to the public.
So you know how the Sunshine Law is really to gain public trust with the public. That's the point of Sunshine Law, is to have those discussions. So when the comments are being made, so we can see where everybody is at, that's what open discussion is supposed to be for, is so that not only can you guys see where everybody is at, so the public can see where everybody is at. And so I think that this poses a big threat to public trust. Also, the Board of Regents, you folks oversee billions of dollars. And so to exempt you from Sunshine Law, to have those meaningful discussions and one-on-one conversations really does not signal to the public that transparency is important, not to mention the financial disclosures not only identifies the financial part of it, but then the conflict of interests part. And so I think that also is not sending a message to the public that we are concerned about transparency and we are an open book. Now, if that means that in your view or the members' view that we don't get qualified board members, qualified according to what standard though? Because to me, qualified means that you're willing to be transparent and accountable to the public. That's what qualified means to me. Now, when these terms are being used loosely, the public might get an impression that we're more concerned about ensuring that we have maybe special interests on this board, or maybe members that have political ties. So there's already so many negative impressions from the public when we don't have this kind of transparency. So again, sorry, back to my question. Can you identify a meaningful discussion that you wouldn't be able to have documented?
Or if, say, in a strategic planning session where the management comes through with their SWOTs and they come up with the top priorities, and they want feedback from the regents on, what the priority should be. A lot of that should be, I would say, if it was in the open session, it could be taken the wrong way. A lot of times it's just discussion, but it's not the whole group wanting to go that way. And then on the Sunshine Law, I really don't know if it really has helped or hurt the transparency and the efficiency of those boards.
Do you think it's fair that if taxpayers are paying for the salaries of these positions or funding these programs, that it would be fair to them that all of those discussions be public, documented, and for everybody to take away, I guess, their own perception of it?
Well, we put items for approval and reporting. Those are all agendized, and that's open to the public. But, there are certain things, or really when it's strategic and we're not getting anything approved, we just want to know how people feel. That's a little different.
Yeah, I'm concerned with that use of term on how people feel. They're supposed to make their best judgment and decision based on the better interest of the public, not necessarily how they feel. So I think it's just semantics that we're kind of going back and forth on, but I did want to mention that I think passing this bill would really lose a lot of public trust. So it might have a huge negative impact on the Board of Regents, where there might already be a negative impression on your folks' board, and I would hate to have you folks be faced with any more contentious perceptions. So I'll just say that, Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Ethics Commission, please.
Ethics. Why don't you just stay there, Gabe? We have more questions.
Thanks, Executive Director, for being here. When I take a look at your testimony, so just so we're clear, don't other boards and commissions do confidential filings other than, I know there's a tier that of a lot of public, more public facing boards and commissions that do public filings, but there's a whole bunch that don't, right?
Absolutely. In 2013, this legislature made the decision to take, I think, what we'd call the high profile, the entities that have more power, and decided to make those disclosures public. So includes ones that you'd reasonably expect: Land Use Commission, Board of Land and Natural Resources, and the UH Board of Regents. There's approximately 10 others. Other entities which may be not controlling significant procurement, not managing people as actively, the idea is that they sort of have less direct oversight of something that might be of critical importance. Those are confidential filers, correct?
Okay, so when you mean confidential, what does that mean? Does the public not get to see them?
Does not see them, correct. So they are filed only with the Ethics Commission. The Ethics Commission would use that if there is a complaint, or if there is an allegation, if there's a suspicion that there was a conflict of interest, we could then look at it and try to address it. Typically, that's a after-the-fact review. Certainly don't have the resources to attend 200 boards and commission meetings and be there in real time to try to address things. So at that point, things are already have happened. And so we have cases where, millions of dollars of decision-making has occurred, and we are after the fact going after the employee for a conflict of interest.
So you complaint-driven, or are you actively looking?
We do audits, but those tend to be difficult. Again, we have well over 100 boards and commissions. Some of them, like the Board of Regents, has a lot of substantial information. So, for example, one property transaction might involve dozens of parties, multiple parent companies. To be able to try to do that kind of review, to try to identify specifically all the potential financial conflicts of interest in real time, is very difficult to do.
So since the 2013 legislation passed, has the Ethics Commission done a review of if that legislation has done what it was intended to do?
Yeah, so for example, last year we received 6 inquiries from Board and Regents asking about potential conflicts of interest. And essentially, I don't know if we would have seen those inquiries in the past. Again, it's speculation, just be very clear. But I think because there is transparency around both the financial interests and the matters before them, I think the interest in trying to identify the conflict of interest and do so cleanly, I think, is a lot greater as a result. And again, that's speculative. It's not a qualitative response. But again, I think anecdotally, we do see positive changes as a result.
So have you kind of drilled down what the concern is? Because maybe there's a hybrid model that we can find of it's still public, but there are certain things that are confidentially given to the Ethics Commission and stuff that is still made public, right? Versus, everything is public versus everything is private. I think there's merit, because I think one of the people that resigned back in 2013 was from Maui, and I understand why. Because I had a conversation with them. But I think, if there's been no review, maybe it's time for us to take a look, right?
I think it's a really great question, and I think it's also an opportunity for education too, and particularly to potential applicants who might be turned off. And I really do want to hopefully seize the opportunity after this meeting to talk about that. We don't identify someone's personal residence, for example. We don't identify specific income amounts. We just identify ranges. The idea is, and again, I think you're probably familiar with it as a legislator. The idea is we're just trying to show that there's a financial connection. And at that point, we don't necessarily need to have any more specifics. We exempt a lot of information, like as discussed, because again, it's unlikely to come up as a conflict of interest, like retirement amounts, amounts in a bank. Those kind of things are all secret and are not revealed. Really looking for interests in a specific company or interest in property that might come before that board or commission. And again, that's described generally, right? So we're doing our best to try and make sure we're protecting privacy, but trying to make sure the information's available. And in many cases, it typically is the staff of that board or agency that needs to know it, so they know if something's on the agenda, that it's potentially a conflict of interest. Stakeholders are involved in it. It's not the public at large, but specific people. We've thought about ways to just try to get it to the staff or the board, but once you've done that at that point, it's really hard to try to then keep that information locked just to that group.
Okay, well, I think it's a good discussion point, and hopefully this piece of legislation gives us the impetus to take a look at what compromise that we can figure out. If you're totally opposed to this piece right now, then maybe we got to figure out, okay, why does the board think they need this, and what is some middle ground that we can potentially introduce in future pieces of legislation? But
I think we are certainly open to input. I will note that, approximately 40 to 45 states have similar public disclosure requirements, and we're right now doing a review of other universities, and I've identified the University of Washington, the University of California, all have very similar standards. So I think this is sort of a national standard, to be clear, and the only thing maybe why it's in such high context here, specifically for the UH Board of Regents, is that 12 years ago, 2013, we had that switch, and so there's people who really remember sort of the distinction. But again, going back to a point where things aren't revealed is really definitely sort of moving.
I don't think anybody's saying that, but I think,
well, this legislation is.
Well, but if we're not gonna find a compromise, then that's what it's gonna be, right? Potentially, if we keep moving this bill. So hopefully we can be more proactive and take a look at what else can we do, right? Because if the solution is take it or leave it, at some point, the legislature is about figuring out, okay, what's the middle ground, right?
Yeah. Again, if there's a way to identify something, we're all ears, and I would not be opposed to it. I would, again, emphasize that it does go to somewhat public transparency and accountability and confidence, as was indicated earlier. And so, there is that feature of it. And so I think it is identifying, are we concretely losing people such that we can't find qualified applicants to be part of this process, and still trying to keep that level of confidence in the decision-making that's going on. And that is a balance, right?
It's always a balance, and I think when you take a look at, if you saw how long it's taking them to fill some of these regent seats, they've just extended the Hawaii region like 3-4 times, right? I think we're gonna end up with that in the Maui regent's position. And so I think, I don't know, at some point we got to take a look at what are the levers that people are concerned about, and because this is a salient topic right now that the board is trying to push, right? So I think we got to look into it. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for the questions.
Okay, well, I'm going to follow up on this if I can, and then, so Robert, right now, you folks get the disclosures, right? So do you actually review the disclosure? You said you get it we do this, you see it at the tail end when there's a complaint. But what do you do on the front end right now?
So about 2 years ago, the legislature actually gave us funding to hire an analyst who is doing reviews of spot audits, essentially, of different agencies and decisions made, and then comparing it to the disclosures that are made to try to identify things.
But can't they still do that if it wasn't public, the disclosures weren't public?
They could. I mean, so for example, we are pursuing an enforcement case right now, and I can't give a lot of detail about it, of somebody who's made dozens of decisions with conflicts of interest and probably involved millions of dollars of decision-making. So we will catch it, but it'll be 2 to 3 years after the decisions have been made.
But that one individual, is their disclosure public or not
In
public?
that particular case, the disclosure was not public, and the staff did not know. And there was really no way to screen for these conflicts of interest in real time.
But even if it was public, they might not have gotten anyway.
I
until
think
after
in
the
this
fact.
particular case, and again, I apologize because we're talking about something specific that I can't get into detail about, I think they would have known, and it would have been prevented earlier in the process. And so, when this case comes public, it will be something where people are going to ask legitimate questions about why wasn't this addressed sooner.
Okay, Senator Tafari.
Is it fair to say that not allowing the financial disclosures as example to be public, that it would be difficult for us to identify whether that Board of Regents member is voting in the better interests of them personally or business-wise? That's another advantage that making it public is that conflict of interest and seeing on whether that member actually is voting in support of their personal or business interests.
I think you nailed it on the head, that goes to the core of public confidence and decision-making.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So Chair, as far as the conversations, transparent conversations, of course, I certainly want the regions to have these kinds of discussions and where we get to know their feelings, and yet we don't see that in a lot of your meetings and your hearings. Members don't bring up the issues, or it's not even put on the agenda for discussion. So I think it goes beyond exempting a retreat from the Sunshine Law, because in your normal meetings, you don't get that kind of discussion anyway, right? So you're saying that by exempting you from the Sunshine Law, we're going to see more candid kinds of discussions, but is that going to then translate to more candid discussions in your regular hearings, so the public gets to know why you folks voted a certain way, or?
A lot of the discussion happens at the committee level, and when it goes on the agenda, there are committee members that will call the chair of the certain committee to just find out a little bit more information about the topics, and then, or you just have more knowledge to ask questions during the committee meetings. But it's not, by the time it gets to the board meetings, it's pretty well vented at the committee level.
Well, I've watched the committee meetings too. It's not always that kind of robust discussions that is going on, which is, especially in the budget. When you folks do the budget, it does not seem like you folks are really getting down into the actual issues as to just to vote on the whole budget, right? One vote, and I mean, that's kind of the process that has been at the board.
Yeah, especially on the budget, at that time, Vice President Calvert Young would have one-on-one meetings with the regents to take on any questions that they may have.
Okay.
Before the committee even starts,
But
or if they needed
Yeah, but
more
then the public
explanation.
doesn't get to hear
Yeah.
all of that concerns and issues that gets raised, right? Okay, last question, Robert. So, we have a bill going through that says that the shouldn't be an active employee of the University of Hawaii to sit on the Board of Regents. We have that with the Board of Education, and do you have any opinion on that as far as conflicts that arise on the daily decisions they have to make as an employee? I know you're not prepared for this, but.
We've encountered it sometimes. There has sometimes been a constitutional prohibition on somebody holding a public office and holding a second public office. And so there's potentially a question of what position in play. So I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm thinking out loud. Obviously, we have allowed people to make decisions when it applies to a general class, but if it's something that would specifically impact them, like a discrete class within, then we usually would insist that they would recuse themselves. So when we've seen this kind of circumstance in other situations. It does raise more challenges. Conversely, I can also see the argument, sometimes those individuals may have more insight as to what's going on at the body. So I mean, that's not a terribly helpful comment, just to say, it's a policy decision, I think, for the legislature.
In certain situations, if their job is dependent upon the university, and if they don't necessarily go along with the general recommendations of the administration, that, and it might not be a direct conflict, but the fact that there's this need to be agreeable with all of the proposals that are coming forth. Do you see that as a possible? I mean, that's probably the reason why, I think commission to select these nominees have looked, I don't think they've been as favorable to putting active employees, because we've not seen a lot of them. But when we have seen it, it seems like that seems to be the situation. And we often hear the word rubber stamp a number of the decisions on that, so.
Again, it's a nuanced issue. I think plainly, if the administration were to directly or indirectly try to put pressure on somebody, that would be a fair treatment violation, right? I understand that, I mean, so they should be prohibited. I understand there may be implicit pressure that, you know, the public potentially could see or
But
perceive.
this kind of legislation is helpful into assuring, to be proactive, that we're not in that kind of situation, right? And everybody's treated equally, because we are allowed retirees or people that have formerly been with the university or with DOE to then sit on these boards and commissions, right?
Certainly understood. I understand the complexity of it. It may be a slightly different situation where you have someone who has got tenure, for example, or some type of protection, like some professors do. But again, I understand the point and why you would try to push for it.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Robert,
much.
Gabe.
Aloha.
Thank you. Okay, we are on Senate Bill 1952, House Draft 1, relating to agriculture, authorizes the issuance of GEO bonds and appropriates funds for capital improvements for the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture, Human Resilience, Agricultural Research and Extension Station on Kauai. And then we have Parwinder. Dean, if you could come forward in support or in comments.
Aloha Chair and the members of the committee, Parvinder Grewal from CETA. This particular request that we have is for our Kauai Agricultural Experiment Station. I just want to highlight that this is our only functional station on that entire island for our research. And a number of buildings are very old and do not comply with ADA. And also, we have cesspool issues that need to be addressed as well. And we do significant amount of work there, and I'm here to answer any questions just in case you have.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Brian Miyamoto.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Senator Decart, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have a written testimony in support, and I think the Dean explained some of the needs of this station. This is in line with the legislature's previous support in the past several years for our extension stations. And 2 years ago, the legislature appropriated $2 million for Paumoho. Last year, $4 million for the Waimanalo. And this year, we're asking for $6 million for Kauai. These extension stations and cooperative extension play a critical role for farmers and ranchers, and they're all kind of built around the same time, and they all need some type of upgrades. Important, although not exactly tied into it. We talked about the previous bill, but the important role that extension program plays, especially times like now, when we are having the Kona low, we're thinking millions of dollars in some damage from wind, floods, loss of power, and our extension service works directly with farmers and ranchers and can help identify what those needs are. Anyway, again, very important program. We're in strong support. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. Hunter on Zoom, are you here? Hunter, you
Not
weren't
present
here
on
last-
Zoom, Chair.
Okay, let's see, we had 19 in support, no opposition. Any members here, anybody here wishing to testify on 1952, House Draft 1? Hearing none. Questions, members, questions? Senator DeCourt, for whom?
Brian. Really quick question, because I don't think that this is in the bill, but you did mention it in your oral testimony. Are you folks asking for 5 million? Is that did I hear you say 5 million?
I believe that is the request.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, thank
you.
you. Let's move on. Senators, House Bill 2005, House Draft 2. This is language accent Amy's favorite bill, establishes a statewide language access education workforce development program, University of Hawaii appropriate funds. And Amy, you are our first testifier in support. Did our House bill not pass over?
Yeah.
It did pass over, right?
They both crossed
They
over.
both crossed, okay.
So the Senate bill crossed over as well. And this is the House bill. And I believe there are no amendments to either of them
Okay,
at this time.
so you rather have the Senate bill, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for hearing this bill. It's an important bill. It increases language access, mandates, and other things. But wanted to just highlight that as you all know, our community is diverse. 20%, nearly 20% are foreign-born, and of the state population, about 1 in 4 speak a language other than English at home, and about 1 in 9 of our population speak English less than well, and are called limited English proficient speakers. And I list here all the languages, I can't list them all, that are spoken in our multilingual community. The good thing is that we also have students now being certified in the Department of Education as being bilingual, and they get a very special certificate if they speak 2 languages, Hawaiian and English. They could just do Swedish and German even, but Ilocano in English and Spanish in English. And they are have a credential on their high school diploma, and many of them are now going to the campus, enrolling in UH campuses. We also have wonderful classes in many of these languages and competent speakers. And so we have competent people, but they also need training if they have to translate and interpret. Just because you speak that language doesn't provide you with enough skills actually to be efficient and clear and accurate. So what this does is actually does good things. It brings people who have some language skills already to be trained, and we have our community that really needs translation. For example, the floods, hurricanes, hardly anything is translated. And so you can imagine how difficult it is in English. You still get wet. But anyhow, we believe that a program like this meets our community's needs, and also we have expertise at the university, and so we support it.
And we supported it going over, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Deborah Halbert for the University of Hawaii. Oh,
Chair, and Senator Lewis Oliveria, on behalf of the university, Vice President Halbert just had to walk out, but
Okay.
we will stand on our testimony.
okay, got it. Jay Butai. Aloha.
Madam Chair Kim, Senator DeCourt, I'm Jade Butai, Director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. We stand on our testimony in support. This initiative builds a pipeline of bilingual professionals ready to serve our diverse population. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. I wish I was bilingual, but I'm not. Lasvin Shane, it's support for the Hawaii State Commission Status of Women, not here. Let's see, Christine Andrews in support by Zoom.
Not on Zoom,
Anybody
Chair.
else? Not on Zoom, okay. Michael Golovich, also in support on Zoom.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Mike Nguyen, Zoom.
Also not on
Marcela-
Zoom.
Marcela Aholani Boido, not on Zoom. Okay,
Oh,
we have one.
sorry, Chair. We do have Miss Marcella on Zoom at the
Oh,
moment.
Marcela, welcome. Marcela, go ahead.
Thank you. I want you to know that I submitted my testimony to a person. I was just sharing it with a member of the Advocacy Committee of the National Association of Judiciary Interpreters and Translators. And they asked me for permission to post it on their advocacy page as an example of good advocacy. What this signifies is that my opposition to thinking that a generic training is going to produce competent interpreters and translators is in fact the national point of view of the national profession of interpreters and translators. We base ourselves on passing tests of ability as interpreters and translators. Generic trainings are useful in teaching ethics and procedure, but they don't produce people who are actually competent to do this kind of very important work. So I want you to know that I didn't actually intend to have my testimony go national, but that's what's going to happen. Both my previous testimony and the testimony that I have submitted today to this committee. So the reason I chose to comment rather than to oppose is because I do sit in with the Hawaii Coalition on Immigrant Rights, and I have great respect and aloha for the work that they do. I've known Amy Agbayani probably longer than she or I would care to admit, but let's just say that it's in decades. And I have great respect and aloha for her too. But I think it's really important for us to understand what's real and what's not. And generic trainings do not produce people who are competent to interpret and translate. You generally need language-specific trainings, and the University of Hawaii system does not have the people on board to do this right now. Plain and simple. So I also would like to point out that I think the Seal of Biliteracy program is a wonderful thing, and it has my wholehearted support, but it is a far, far away from being the only way in which people become a bilingual. I, for example, grew up speaking both Spanish and English. I passed out of my high school requirement on foreign languages by taking a test. I did the same thing again at university, and that freed me to take upper level division courses in Spanish, which I enjoyed very much. And like most interpreters, I fell into interpreting. It wasn't something I had planned on. So I would also like to point out to you that these people who are coming up through this system, who are bilingual, have the same right to dream of other careers where they could actually make a living, which
Marcella, I'm going to have to ask you to summarize. Thank you.
So my comments on this bill are targeted at the issue of generic trainings. We need language-specific training if you're going to produce competent interpreters and translators.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 others that have sent in testimonies of support and one comments. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Hearing none, questions, members? Any questions? Hearing no questions? Assume Senator Hashimoto has no questions on this bill. Okay, thank you. We are moving on to Senate Bill 2139, House Draft 1. Invasive species, appropriate funds to the University of Hawaii to conduct a study on effective treatment methods to reduce population of the Queensland longhorn beetle. First up is Patrick Chi from the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator DeCourt. My name is Patrick Chi. I'm from the Department of Land and Natural Resources and the Hawaii Invasive Species Council. We are in strong support of this bill. The Queensland longhorn beetle is a significant threat. It is known to bore into and at sometimes possibly kill a number of species, many of them important to agriculture, our culture, and it has been found in our native plant, the alahe'e. So we really do feel that it's important for there to be further research into the life cycle of this beetle and to find out that if there are any other techniques and control efforts that we can do in order to make sure that the Queensland longhorn beetle is controlled and contained.
Is it related to the rhinoceros beetle?
It is not related, closely related, but unfortunately it may have just as much impact or more because of the breadth and the width of the numbers of species that it is currently being found to impact. So if we can get a handle of it, this would be something that we should try and do as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. For Hawaii Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, did not get a name.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Han Lau, Plant Pest Control Branch Manager. The department stands on our written testimony in support of the bill.
Okay, thank you. And Brian Miyamoto for the Hawaii Farm Bureau in opposition. See, that's gonna stay with you now forever.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here. On behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau, you have our written testimony in support. This is a bad one.
They're all
LFA,
bad, right?
CRB, CBB, CLF, MFC, RRP. We're getting too used to these abbreviations for pests. This one is bad. You heard Mr. Chi talk about the breadth that can impact. Ulu, cacao, avocado, citrus, hibiscus, kukui, just to name some. Agriculturally and culturally important crops in Hawaii. It was found in Puna. There's presence in Honoka'a. We've seen it with other pests where it starts somewhere, we don't put enough attention and resources to it, and then it spreads island-wide. And then it spreads statewide. We can't afford to keep combating pests. We don't want to come back to you folks in 5 years saying, hey, can we get some funding to try to mitigate or control some of this? Let's control it now as soon as we can. Let's put some resources there and see if we can eradicate this thing. This is a bad one. And this is just another one. And just for the information, LFA, little fire ant, CRB, coconut molasses beetle, CBB, coffee berry borer, CLF, coffee leaf rust, MFC, macadamia felted cocksid, and RRP, rose ring parakeet. This is another one. This is a nasty one. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Easley. Stephanie, go ahead.
Aloha, Chair Kim, members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Easley with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. You have our written testimony. We want to thank you for hearing HB 2139 today, echoing the comments made by previous testifiers. This is a bad pest. There's over 20 identified host species of agricultural and cultural importance. We hope you'll move this one forward, try to get some techniques to control this pest and hopefully eradicate it from Hawaii Island, but certainly prevent it from spreading statewide. I'm here if you have any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you, Stephanie. Becky Ostertag.
Yes, aloha. My name is Rebecca Ostertag. I'm from University of Hawaii Department of Biology, and we stand by our written testimony. We've done some preliminary work testing a biocontrol, the nematode biocontrol, and we've had success with it on a relatively small sample size, and this funding would help scale up the research. We've worked on kukui and ulu. For kukui, using the nematode biocontrol, 76% of the trees improved with the biocontrol, and 15 stayed the same, which is also good because they're not getting worse. In terms of killing the trees, we've seen death of many of our trees with this. And for ulu, 80% of the trees improved with the biocontrol. So we have some promising results, and this funding would pay for a full-time worker and a part-time worker to support the research to scale up the methods. It's a low-tech, low-cost solution, but it needs more research to be ramped up to scale to be able to be available to farmers. And I'm happy to answer questions if they come up.
Thank you. Emma Staroff. No, if I've said that correctly. Emma.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Emma Stierhoff. I'm a lead ecological technician at the University of Hawaii Hilo. I'm here to express my strong support of HB 2139, which will allocate funding to essential research that is needed to address the growing threat posed by Queensland longhorn beetle, or QLB. I stand on my written testimony in support, but I also want to highlight the urgent community need for this research. As QLB spreads across East Hawaii, it has been devastating to farmers who are losing cacao, citrus, avocado, and several other crop plants to these larvae. It has over 20 known hosts in Hawaii. The nematode biocontrol developed by USDA is effective against QLB, as Becky mentioned, but the existing method of injecting the trees is very time intensive. Community members want to implement this, but don't have the capacity to do so at the necessary scale when dozens of their trees are infected. We're confident that this research will result in well-informed, more time and cost-efficient methods of treatment. This, combined with substantial community buy-in to the biocontrol, will lead to far more effective control of QLB in East Hawaii, reducing damages and helping prevent its spread to other islands. The cost of this research pales in comparison to the losses producers will face to QLB if it's left unaddressed. This research will also reduce the cost of future QLB control, given that it will require less manpower. This is a small investment that will greatly benefit the future of Hawaii, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Hunter Hevlin.
Not on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, Lila Shapiro. Aloha, Lila.
Aloha, my name is Lila Shapiro, and I work under Dr. Ostertag along with Emma, where my focus is on QLB and the use of nematodes as a biocontrol. I strongly support HB 2139 and stand on my testimony. QLB, as people have said, is a generalist pest known to target and often kill nearly 20 host species. And when injected into trees, the nematodes that we use are able to kill these larvae. This method has been extremely effective, as Becky pointed out. However, this treatment is very time intensive, which is why it is essential that we invest in research on different treatment methods so it can be scaled up for farmers with hundreds, if not thousands, of trees. This biocontrol offers an opportunity to be proactive about managing QLB populations before it spreads to other islands and causes widespread devastation like we have seen with the coconut rhinoceros beetle. It is already rapidly spreading across the east side of Hawaii, and we need to stop the spread immediately. So often with these invasive species, it is too little too late, but now we have a chance to actually combat this growing issue. Along with funding research, HB 2139 would allow us to continue our outreach and community involvement in this project. We have led treatment workshops at OK Farms and Hawaii Academy of Arts and Sciences to teach community members how to apply this treatment, because there is no way we can fight this beetle without the community being able to treat their own trees. We have also worked with middle school and high school students, working with them hands-on to treat trees themselves and collect long-term data monitoring their infection and health has shown them how everyone has a kuleana in protecting our ecosystems, and we can all be a part of the science behind it. I've heard the excitement in their voices when they report back to me that the trees on their campus are doing better. This is getting them direct experience in science and Aloha Aina work, and is also helping to save these trees. Taking action against QLB is essential to our environmental health, food security, and cultural heritage. HB 2139.
Can you summarize, please?
Yes.
Please summarize.
Okay, I'm following. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Eric Tanoe? Here we have 6 others sending in testimonies in support. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Hearing none. Members, any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Dab, please. Thank you. This bill is to get a study started, yeah, but do you folks have any solutions right now? Do you have any path forward? Because I'm afraid that this study is going to take so long that it's going to jump over to other islands, so.
Currently, no. And in fact, right now, I'm working with actually Becky on to fund a project similar to this, actually, to help them start on this. So hopefully, whatever the results they get from this particular project with her is going to help to complement the work that they're going to be doing if this bill gets funded.
Oh, so this is going to partner with another project? Is that what you're saying?
No, because my understanding is right. This film currently I'm working with Becky on a contract for them to start this project.
Right, but this,
yeah.
But this is just to study it. I think the question is, what is the department doing physically?
Right now, nothing. So
nothing. There is nothing you can do?
I mean, in terms of treatment, no, we have no treatment available right now.
Where did this beetle come from?
Queensland, Australia.
I know. Do we know how it got here?
So I don't know. This happened. Okay, my understanding is it was detected back in 2009, and then it was by Bishop Museum, and then
we did nothing since 2009.
I can't speak for what happened back then. I joined this position last year May, so I'm inheriting this. So what I'm trying to do now is to at least help to spearhead this. So it was detected back in 2009. And then for a brief period of time, wasn't detection until back in 2013 and 2014.
Because you guys are asking for a position, yeah? Or no? Not a
No,
position,
it's-
No,
just.
this is to UH.
Pushing- oh,
Yeah.
to UH, yeah. So my concern is that, well, how long will the study take? Do you guys have a deadline on that?
Actually, this is quite promising because they're working with a local strain of nematodes. So I believe they do have preliminary study results already. And so it's quite promising. And that's why I'm working with Becky.
So no idea how it's getting transferred within the state, within the island of Hawaii?
No, I don't have information. And the truth of the matter is also I'm trying to establish two survey entomologist positions to help to get information like that. So
yeah.
So let me continue on the questioning. How do they handle this in Australia?
Well, because Hawaii is unique because unlike Australia, they do have then natural predators. So, but we don't have it down here. Same thing with coqui frogs in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, you have natural predators over there, but when you come over here, there's no natural predators, and so we're stuck with, yeah.
What are the natural predators for this beetle?
This one, I got to check and get back to you.
Okay. Well, it's very troubling to know that this beetle has been here since 2009. And then, all these years have gone by and only now we're studying it. Only now we're getting to it. Why is that? Who drops the ball on this?
Well, Chair, we don't know. I mean, I'm just new in this position myself, but the thing is that the invasion of various things, it takes a long time for it to get to a point where it is, an inflection point where more people notice it. So the fact that no one
It's
is.
too late by then, right? So
Right.
when we know that we know that the tree snake, we get one tree snake found, then we better get going, right? Not wait till more people recognize it. So when the first beetle, and I can see, okay, 2009, but by 2013, you would think that, more is going on and that we
I mean, the
would-
good thing is that the research, I mean, there's significant research, and this, nematode is identified as a means to potentially control the beetle. But I mean, ideally, that we would, have, some, exploratory, biological control folks going out to Australia and seeing what is keeping it in check, in Australia. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that we should, work with Department of Agriculture in order to do. But
Am I allowed to
definitely-
comment on Zoom?
No. So when we, just because you folks are new, and I understand that, but the beetle's not new, and there are many people that have been in the department for a number of years, right? We have people that's there for 20, 30 years. So I'm just concerned that these kinds of things get caught when it's kind of late already. So if we knew the beetle was so devastating when it first noticed it, then we should have started doing stuff, right? We should have started making sure we have things in abeyance, have studies done so we could react quicker. But we wait, we always do that, we wait. Rhinoceros beetles, we wait till the coconut trees are all dead, right?
Yeah, and we're waiting because we're doing studies to keep studying, to bring the solution, and then to respond. So when we found out about the CRB, we're monitoring, we're putting up those lanterns, we're doing all of this data, but then the conditions are so bad at this point, none of the coconut trees can be salvaged. So hopefully we can replant. But I think my concern is just that, how long is this study gonna take? Do you have any solutions? I mean, how hard would it be to start to collaborate with the other side? I understand they have those species that are taking care of it naturally, but because we don't have that, there must be some kind of other natural way that we can take care of that. So, yeah.
Am
Any
I
idea,
allowed to
what the
comment on
appropriations
Zoom?
is?
We will get to you if you're
Okay,
just
thank you.
patient. Thank you. Okay. So, Senator Hashimoto, you had a question. Okay, we'll take a short comment. Who is this?
This is Rebecca. This is Rebecca Ostertag, University of Hawaii at Hilo. The issues are that until we have the research, this research is on finding solutions for the management and control of the pest, and right now we don't have that. So
The question is, why did it take us too long to want to find the solutions? Yeah. So
well,
that's the
this is
question.
a common problem across all of the work in invasive species. Many times invasive species get to a place, they're undetected or at low levels, and they explode at a later point. And then that's when we realize it's a problem. So we need constant monitoring, research, and funding to be dealing with Hawaii's invasive species.
Right. Well, what
I mean,
we
the
need.
good thing is that the Hawaii Invasive Species Council and the various island invasive species, we have early detection and rapid response, and a number of these species don't get to this point. The fact that we don't hear about more QLBs happening is
But not today, but you will hear it about maybe tomorrow.
No.
So,
But what I'm saying is that there are a number of weeds and insects and whatnot that have that are being addressed soon after they come or even before they come, and so it's just that this one unfortunately is beyond that to being early detected and eliminated before it becomes a significant problem.
well, and that's the point. The point is when we first see it and then we monitor it, and then we need to then be proactive instead of reactive, which is what happens. We wait till it reaches to this point, and then it costs so much more to eradicate.
But and the other thing is that in its home range, QLB is not an issue, which is partly because it's got natural enemies there, and so the fact that it is an issue here is it is unique in the world because
Well, did it come in on some plants?
we don't know.
Well, it had to come in somewhere.
Right,
So what
right.
would be your best guess?
Oh, it probably came in on logs or something like that.
So we're not doing good enough job in preventing these kinds of things from coming into the state. Our agricultural farms, our agricultural detection is not working.
Right, and the biosecurity, should there be, organic materials coming into the state, there should be certain things that we do to say, maybe they need to be sterilized before they get here.
Well, but then that's why we look to you guys for these recommendations or these measures to come before us so we can be proactive, because none of us are experts in this field. None of us knew about this beetle in 2009 or 2013 or even in 2019. So those are the kinds of things that, that's why we have the departments and we have the heads of the department so that you folks can be the ones to be proactive and tell us, hey, we need this to happen, and not wait till the last minute. I mean, I shouldn't say last minute, but wait to the point where it's going to be devastating or
Sure.
could be devastating.
Well, and we also need cooperation from our federal partners who have various levels of.
But then you guys got to let the legislative body know so we can go ahead and make sure we have the cooperation. So do you understand that that's what we're looking for? We're looking for you folks. Now, if you're ringing the bell and we're ignoring it, then it's on us, right? So, but if you're not ringing the bell, then we have no way of knowing this needs done. And you folks ring the bell, but you guys ring it too late. I shouldn't say too late, but you ring the bell, but it's like it's getting out of hand already. Right?
I don't know exactly what happened back then. Maybe they did. I mean, I'm just trying to be fair to everyone, but
Yeah. Okay, but then why don't you research it when you come to us and say, back in 2019, we got a bill to the legislature and you guys didn't do anything. So if you can do your homework and, help us so we know where the problems are.
And then also there have been several committees that have been formed due to invasive species, like the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. I mean, there's multiple upon multiple. So has anybody even at least started the work out of good faith to get ahead of it? Or do you need to do a study to pass a bill, to get funding? Excuse me, hold on one second, please. Let me get my thought out. is because when I first asked you folks if there were any solutions, you said no, that you're just learning about it. Oh, okay, you did not, correct, Deb, you did. Okay, so we already have committees that should be in front of all of these invasive species. So again, I feel we're delaying the solution by creating a study to therefore create a bill, appropriations. Then do we have to create another department? I mean, somebody should be getting in front of all this. So can Oahu Invasive Species Committee and other affiliated organizations like them, can they just do the work without the appropriations, without having it be specifically targeted to that, but just encompassing?
Well, definitely the Big Island Invasive Species Committee has been paying attention to this. And we at the Hawaii Invasive Species Council have funded them to do some of that
Great.
work. And that's been ongoing. And they've, of course, been working with the University of Hawaii, Hilo, in order to address the issue. But, having...
So do they have solutions?
Right, that's the nematodes that they have right now. That's the closest that we have at this point. But if we can have further funding and research to figure out more about what could potentially control them, that would get us beyond the point that they have right now, which is a very time and labor intensive way of trying to address the issue. So if we can figure out something else easier, that would be great.
We're asking for how much money now for this study?
I think it's 130 something.
Good explain though.
No, they added back in the last SHD something.
It's a blank.
What I
Okay,
saw.
So when would the study start and when would it end?
You can ask that.
I am.
May I speak up?
Can answer that question. When will the study
I
start?
can answer that question.
Okay.
My name is Emma Stierhoff. I work under Rebecca Ostertag. With all due respect, I think we're getting away from the topic of the bill a bit, so I'm happy to reorient us. This is funding
Can you just
for...
answer the question? Can you just answer the question, please?
The research would start as soon as we get the funding.
Okay. And how long will it take before we get any results? Or
Within a year.
so 1 year from now, should the money get appropriated in this budget cycle, a year from now, you would have results from the study?
Yes, so as the Department of Biocontrol mentioned, we are working with them to do a study on more efficient treatment methods. There is an existing treatment for this with the nematodes, but it's very time intensive. And so we are trying to improve these methods in order to scale it up. And that will allow us to implement this at the necessary scale to really control QLB.
Okay, and we anticipate that we will get enough out of this study that we wouldn't have to do another study after another study?
Yes, and it will reduce costs as well for future QLB biocontrol.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we are on House Bill 2158. Requires the University of Hawaii system to collect, maintain, and publish standardized program level data for each academic program offered, requires maintenance of an online dashboard with program level data, and requires an annual report. Deborah Halbert to testify.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Debbie Halbert, Vice President for Academic Strategy. We'll stand on our written testimony, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'm not sure if others testify or if I should just stay here.
Hold on 1 second, I kind of lost my place here. 58, yeah. Okay, anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Hearing no others, so Deborah, you want to come back up? So can you're obviously not in support of this measure, correct?
Well, we have a lot of comments, in part because of the way our data infrastructure is set up and the fact that we are undergoing a variety of different data transitions internally right now. And in part is implementing some internal dashboards. But of course, we agree with the intent to make sure that we are presenting publicly as much data as possible about the successes of our students as well as our programs.
So that's not something that you already have?
We do have a variety of these pieces. So on our website now, you can find out all sorts of information about retention, graduation. We also have a really, I think, exciting dashboards, which is mentioned in the testimony, the secondary employment outcomes, post-secondary employment outcomes, the PSEO database, which is in collaboration with the U.S. Census, and you can look there for how the different majors lead to different kinds of professional programs across the UH system. So we have a variety of different tools. I think the intent of this bill is to somehow centralize things even more into a single space, though this would be a lot of data to have in a single space, but we already have consolidated quite a bit of it. A lot of the rest lives in different databases, and so as we come to refine our data infrastructure internally, we may be able to tap into that more, but right now our institutional research and program, our policy office would have to be reaching into different kinds of data streams to build the kind of dashboard that is envisioned in this particular bill.
So is there something more simple that you can provide in the meantime? I know a lot of times, we ask for so much data and I'm not necessarily know that we actually utilize a lot of that data. A few people do, but the general public wants basic information. Like, okay, what are the outcomes and what are the possibilities of each program? Academic program.
Yeah,
so if I go into this program, what can I expect? Something basic and simple across the board for each one to see how successful these programs are, or if the programs are in for me, what I look at, whether or not it's current and in line with projections into the future as to what programs we're going to need. And so those are the things that I think the university should also be looking at, as to seeing that are we prepping our students for programs or areas of academics that isn't going to be outdated in the next 10 to 20 years.
And I think we have all of those pieces. I think that some of it is potentially for us promoting where you access that data already. And again, the piece, I don't know how to pronounce it, the PSEO database will show you 1, 5, and 10 years out for people who are getting sociology degrees or political science degrees or whatever kinds of degrees. So we do have access to some of that data. Last legislative session, we also were able to get through the process access to additional state level data that will allow us to refine some of that postgraduate outcome data. And I think that gets to your point. Once we have access to that kind of data, then we can backcast and look at how academic programs prepare folks for whatever jobs they're getting in the
It's just
future.
that there's just too many different places to look, too many different questions you got to ask. And, sometimes it wants, I know when I ask questions, I want, can I get a chart of this? And then I get pages and pages of stuff. I'm like, okay, I wanted just a simple Excel sheet that showed me how much we spent, how much we paid, how much money's left over, how much money we owe. No, I get a whole bunch of stuff. So how do we get academics to give us basic stuff that the general public wants to see without all the other data that only the experts or people of that area in that kind of realm would really want?
Well, we did just implement for our institutional research office at the system level a new data platform where hopefully you can see in a little bit more easy to access format a lot of the data around especially student success. We're slowly transitioning our old, more complicated tables into the new environment, but it has infographics, it has charts, it tries to translate the data into something that's readable as opposed to simply trying to kill you with data.
Yes,
and so the new refreshed site does that for our basic student support, but we're trying to move all of it over. I mean, it's an ongoing process. And then that site can house, as we envision it, it would house the kind of work that this bill would potentially.
So what is your hopes that we do with this bill?
If this bill were to pass, it would be useful for our institutional research office to have additional staffing support. Increasing federal compliance has meant that much of their time has been spent in the last few years submitting reports on financial value, transparency, and gainful employment, as well as the recent ACTS legislation, which may or may not an injection may be put on, which requires them to put together 7 years of data across the UH system for your institutions and compare that to admissions criteria at a granular level. So there's a lot of huge heavy lifts that the team has been working on. But aside from that, I think we can work towards this internally. And we already have a lot of the pieces in place, but there's, as I said, some internal data transitions happening. We're moving, as you know, to EAB, and that has a whole data warehouse infrastructure that we're in the process of implementing. So to be determined how all of that will come together. So it may be a little premature to see if this bill is necessary.
That's my biggest concern. We keep asking for data, and it keeps asking for more and more additional warm bodies to get that data. And then what do we do with that data? Just, I think, a small percentage of that data is actually utilized on a day-to-day basis. So again, you know, what are the pros and cons and the amount of money that we're spending to enable this kind of data, and how many people are really utilizing the data, and does the data really translate into results for, like the one we talked about, nutrition? You know, is the data gonna then result in everybody eating, you know, what percentage of the population is going to change their habits with that money over what period of time? You know, it's like all of this climate change, you know, we're spending so much money on climate change, and all the data that I've seen is that it's such a small percentage, all of this that we're spending, such a small percentage in our role in saving the planet compared to what is going on to the rest of the world, while people are going without electricity, water, and food in many cases, and can't afford some of these things because the costs are going so high because of all the resources that we're putting into some of these data. And yes, it needs to be done, but still people need to be able to survive, right, day to day. So, yeah, I mean, we can do anything with more staffing, and therein lies the whole issue with the bureaucracy that is there, and the number of vice presidents and associate vice presidents, and you know, and superintendents and assistant superintendents, deputy assistants, area super. You know, we keep adding on layers and layers of people, and then I'm not sure that we really, in the very bottom at the level, the general public and the students are actually benefiting by all of this.
Well, we would hope to use this data to help support a student success agenda. And so that's certainly what a lot of the internal data dashboards that we'll be setting up in the next year will do. So that, we were just talking about this morning in our officers group, so that we'll be able to say, here are the kinds of gateway courses that don't contribute to student success, so that we can intervene and figure out how to make changes. So that's the ideal aspirational hope behind how we could use this data.
Some of those stuff you can tell without all of the data, right? I mean, come on, you know, we know.
And we do have access to DFW data now. I mean, and we have implemented different kinds of professional development strategies based on that. So we are working with it already.
For some reason, legislators just feel like if we ask for the data, if we get the data, that things are going to change. Unfortunately, that's not happening, but okay, members, any questions?
So Deborah, do you think that we can get the data without giving you this position?
We have already, I mean, aside from, our testimony talks to some of the data that isn't currently centralized, and that would be more difficult. The rest of it we already have, we're just needing to figure out how to consolidate that data. So if the thrust is towards student success especially, then we do have access to most of that data already.
So how much of the data do you not have?
And so there's two levels to it. Things that we'd have to figure out how to collect. So the data exists, but it's out there in different databases or at different campuses. So a lot of that data is in, it's third paragraph of our testimony. So for example, we don't have across all campuses the instructional cost per student credit hour and per degree awarded as system-wide. So campuses can have that. So some of it is collaborating and making it at a system level, and other parts of it is the different databases we have, making sure that we can tap into those and consolidate, if that makes sense, as two different kinds of challenges to where the data is right now.
So I'm gonna rephrase my question. If your guys' back was against the wall and this data was prevalent and you just didn't have a position to compile it and put it all together, Do you think you guys would be able to get all of the data together?
If we had all the data in one place, yes.
Okay, so
It's really a matter of the sort of reconfiguration of the system architecture and pulling in data from all of these different kinds of sources that, and I am not a data person. I rely on my data people to talk through kind of the intricacies of it. But a lot of that is making our systems talk to each other and building up that infrastructure.
So since this does gear towards the student success, I would believe it would be a priority of the university to ensure that we have accurate data, that we have full data. And so I think it's a little unfair to come to the ledge and ask us to give you guys a position based on what should already be a priority for the university, and maybe having to maybe shift some funds around to ensure this position. So I'm almost kind of like, I get super nervous asking you folks for another thing, because then you ask us for 10 times more. So I just wanted to see if your back was against the wall, if you would be able to compile all this data, considering that it does prioritize student success, which already should be a vision and a mission for the university. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, Deborah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah.
Okay, moving on to House Bill 2338, House Draft 1. This is amends the Hawaii Community College Promise Program to exclude grants, scholarships, and other funding sources from the calculation of the Hawaii Promise Awards, allowing students to apply such funds towards indirect costs, including housing, food, and other living expenses, to reduce financial barriers and support student success. We have Kahele Duklo on Zoom.
Yes, aloha, Chair and Senators. I'm Kahele Duklo, the interim AVP for Academic Affairs for the community colleges, and we stand on our testimony and we are available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Keith Hayashi for Department of Education. Nobody from DOE. Okay, David Miyashiro testifying for Hawaii Kids Can. Aloha.
Aloha. Aloha, Chair Kim, Senator DeCourt, Senator Hashimoto. I just want to speak a little bit as the leader of a nonprofit, Hawaii Kids Can. So we've gone around the state, talked to many families, talked to a lot of students, and a couple things that we've learned. One is that folks are looking at community colleges very differently than I think traditionally has been done. There's been a lot more work to align community college with workforce needs, including construction, nursing, et cetera. And so the other thing that's come up very clearly is affordability. So families want to know that if they're making that investment in higher education, that they're going to get that return on investment. And I think fortunately, UHERO's data has shown, especially when students are getting Associates of Science degrees from community colleges, the return on investment is very strong, and just about as strong as it is from a general bachelor's degree from UH. Let that sink in. Associates of Science ROI is just about the same as a general bachelor's degree from UH. So all that to say, I think improving the Promise program is a really important step forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, Carlin McFadden? Not here. Stephen Schatz, Randy Wong, Chelsea Pang, and Crystal Thompson, all in support. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Questions? Senator Hashimoto for...
EVP Duklo, you still there?
Yep, aloha.
So with this amendment to the bill, what do you think is it's going to cost the state when we are, allowing more, we're not going to count others' aid. What more is this going to cost us to subsidize?
Well, at this point, we're not asking for any additional funding. I think we're trying to figure out exactly, what the effects may be. At this point, we know that through Hawaii Promise, we can meet the direct cost needs of students who show financial aid through the FAFSA process. And we think that allowing students to use other kinds of aid like scholarships, and institutional grants, for other costs. We think that it would improve, the success of our students so that they would not have to work as much. And at this moment, again, we're not asking for any additional funding at this point in time.
Okay, so basic, because when I read the bill, it's you're allowing more things to not count towards their,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So that it shouldn't impact though what we're gonna be giving these students, or does it?
No. So we, we're asking that it's the last state and federal dollar so that we go off of what a Pell Grant would be issued. And then the Hawaii Promise funding would be used if there are any remaining need up until their direct cost is met. Right? So we have a bunch of different kinds of funding that can be used to close those gaps, Hawaii Promise being one of them.
Okay. So this would, in theory, though, what would your cost savings be then? An administrative burden?
Let's see. Right now, what happens is that if a student is awarded, again, the base is going to be their federal Pell Grant, and a student is awarded Hawaii Promise. If a student goes out and gets any other kind of aid, right, through any kind of philanthropic, institutional, Hawaii Community Foundation, any kind of aid, we have to repackage their aid to exclude Hawaii Promise. What we're trying to say is that to let that federal state aid stand with Hawaii Promise, so that students aren't penalized for going out and getting additional scholarships.
But it seems like, so nationally though, aren't they doing that for most institutions? They're penalizing if you get more scholarship? Because I've been talking to a lot of students and they're like, oh no, since I get scholarship because they redo my financial aid package. So is this like a kind of a loophole?
Yeah, and many of the Hawaii Promise, of the Promise programs across the nation are also trying to implement this in their state. And I think we had one of our consultants testify at the last time that this is the practice. I think I think it was an unintended consequence of saying last dollar. I don't think that was the intention of Hawaii Promise, but I think that has been, they have seen across the nation that has been the outcome. And they're trying to remedy that through, clarifying that they're talking about last federal and state dollar and not all dollars.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
I'm a little confused here. So if the Pell Grants, the federal program, say, they don't normally cover 100%, right? Or do they cover 100%?
No. And it depends on the student need, how much money they would get for that, yes.
So they say they don't cover $500 of whatever, or only a percent. So the Promise program comes in, and can they then do that last $500? No.
Yes, that's exactly how we use Hawaii Promise.
So how was we doing it before? That's always been my thought, that's what we were doing.
Well, what was happening is that if a student went out and got other scholarships, it would displace Hawaii Promise instead of stack on top to meet their indirect needs. So if a student, got their student need was $5,000 and they got $4,000 from a federal Pell Grant and they got $1,000 from Hawaii Promise. If a student went out and got a scholarship of $500, we would repackage, and the $500 would be taken out of Hawaii Promise.
But isn't that what, the Hawaii Promise was to put in whatever additional that needed. And so if they do get other scholarships, then it would reduce the state funding and allow for other students to get it, right? So what are we saying here? We're saying you're going to get it no matter what, and
no, we're saying that if you have any direct need, that we can fill that with the federal financial aid and Hawaii Promise. And if you access grants or other private scholarships, that you use that to meet your indirect costs. Because the direct cost is just tuition and books, right? You still have
But a
housing,
lot of
transportation, and
scholarships
all
say
of that.
that you should use it for tuition. A lot of scholarships, right, have requirements that should be used for tuition, or that the check has to be paid directly to the school for tuition. So how does that fill in?
I mean, there are some, but many scholarships, many private philanthropic dollars don't make those designations.
What about those that do? Then what happens?
Then you would have to displace.
Okay, so then what, the direct or indirect needs, the Promise program pays it 100%?
No. It's built on first the federal aid. So the
Right.
student has to show financial aid need through the FAFSA process. And typically they would get a Pell Grant award. Depending on their need is the amount that they would get. And then whatever is left to meet their direct cost, that's when the Promise comes in.
Okay, but then you also say indirect, which is transportation, food,
Housing,
rent,
yeah,
housing, right?
Yeah.
So those are, you call that indirect or direct? Indirect.
indirect,
Indirect. So the Promise program can pay for all of that?
direct, only direct.
Oh, not indirect?
No. So the Promise and federal aid only, so each student has a direct cost of need. And federal, FAFSA, Pell Grants can pay for direct costs. And the Promise is for direct costs only.
Okay, I was under the impression that the Promise was for indirect costs.
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Right?
So I guess in the analysis then, we're still sure then that there's no cost impact. I don't know how there is not one.
I mean,
Right, because if you're gonna allow them to use outside scholarships for the indirect, in theory, we're now subsidizing your direct costs more through Hawaii Promise, right?
yeah.
But we don't know what that cost could be.
We are anticipating that if there are no changes to federal financial aid, and again, this is not all students, right? These are students that show financial aid need according to the federal guidelines.
Right. But we don't know what that number is, because I'm assuming we have a current set of students that would have to be recalculated, right, based on this new law. So I'm assuming that it's so small that you're thinking it's insignificant, or are we talking this impacts?
So Hawaii Promise is one kind of funding, right? We also we have stuff like Native Hawaiian tuition waivers that also come out. So it's not the only thing that we use to.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're just making sure, right? But you guys, we want to pass something, and then you're going to be like, oh, we got to go tip into the tuition, surplus because we forgot that, we forgot to do the calculation correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't know.
We don't think that there's going to be a negative impact. And we think that we can leverage all of the different funding, federal and state funding, to meet our need.
Okay.
To meet the needs of our students.
So currently, the Promise program is able to cover 100% of all the students that qualify for Promise. You can cover 100% of direct costs, or you've been covering 100% of direct costs.
Pretty much, yes.
What do you mean by pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay,
So part of the problem is because of the way the law is written, that it's the funding keeps having to be repackaged, right? So every time a student gets, a new scholarship, it comes back into the calculation, and then we have to repackage their financial aid, and then we, have to and then we move the funds on. So that's part of the problem, I think, with the way that the bill is written, is that it's constantly repackaging based on any kind of additional aid that students get, which causes, problems when you're talking about timing of packaging and, whether the student knows how much they're getting. Yeah.
Okay, so is it the intent that we do cover 100% of the students' direct needs, or should there be some buy-in by the students and that leave some money for other students to be able to benefit from these state dollars?
I think we try to cover as much of the direct cost as we can, because we know that that's, what is that? That's an equalizer, if we're looking for equity for economically disadvantaged students. We know that at least covering the direct costs will be the thing that could make or break their college success. Yeah.
So you don't think a student should have to at least have skin in the game as to paying for at least 5% or 10% of the direct costs, so that, I know whenever I get something free, a lot of times people don't even bother because it's free. But when they have to pay for a little bit, then you actually utilize it because, you put money into it and it means a lot more.
Yeah. I think that we're assuming that they're able to pay the 5%, right? So I think what we see is that students cannot pay right up front. I know we have a lot of programs where if a student had to put out money up front, they wouldn't be able to enroll.
Well, maybe it's not upfront, but it's somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, covering direct costs is maybe tuition and books. Students still have to put in the time, they have to work, they have all the rest of, what it takes to live in Hawaii as a challenge.
Understand, but that's all of us, right? All of us, none of us here ever had promise program or any kind of promise scholarship at all. And, we all had to work to pay for it. People are still working to pay for their debts and so forth, and their student debt as well as other kinds of debt going on. So, I'm just trying to see how we can help more students by giving everybody maybe 95% versus 100%, then we can cover more students with dollars.
And that's actually, financial aid packaging, happens in that way so that and community college financial aid is done systemically. So, they do try to figure out the best ways to stack and leverage funding so that we can, meet the needs of more students. That's
We can always lower tuition, right? That would help as well. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you. Go ahead, next bill. House Bill 2339, House Draft 1, we'll put it at the end of the agenda. No, I'm just kidding. I know Louis has been sitting here waiting. Okay, this is relating to the University of Hawaii revenue bonds, authorizing Board of Regents to issue revenue bonds for the purpose of financing qualifying priority capital improvement projects. And we have Louis Silvera from the University of Hawaii to testify.
Chair, Senators, Louis Silvera, University of Hawaii will stand on our testimony in support. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, come forth because you are the only one testifying. Anybody else wishing to testify just to be official? No? Okay, you are it. Okay, so what exactly you need, how much do you need, and why do you need it for these revenue bonds?
So this would be for the second half of the biennium. So last year, the legislature appropriated $30,750,000 in each year of the biennium for CIP expenditures in revenue bonds. But last year, the legislature for the authorization, because in addition to the expenditure, we need the authorization to issue those bonds. The legislature only issued the first year, which was the $30,750,000. So this would be for the second year authorization. So we'll have a total of $61,500,000 in order to issue the revenue bond that was appropriated this biennium.
And that revenue bond is for student housing?
Correct.
Not for anything else?
It's just for student housing.
Okay. Senator Hashimoto, that was your measure, right? So, yeah. Everybody? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, Senate Bill, I keep saying Senate Bill, House Bill 2461, House Draft 1. This is the Maritime Youth Apprentice Pathway Program, directing the University of Hawaii Community College in partnership with the state agencies and maritime employers to conduct a study and develop a plan for a statewide maritime youth apprentices program, individuals 16 to 24. And here to testify, we have, let's see, Artis Eschenberg for the University of Hawaii on Zoom.
Aloha mai kako, Chair Mercado Kim, Senators Delacour and Hashimoto. Thank you for allowing the testimony today. We stand on our testimony as sent in. Mahalo. And sit by for questions as well.
Okay, let's see. For the Chamber of Commerce, Sherry Manor. We have Nadia in place of Sherry.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Nadia Holt here for Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, standing on a written testimony in support. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. And we have 11 others, all in support. Anyone else here wishing to testify? Not, okay. Can we have Artis back? Artis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just a quick question. So what is the demand for this program?
So there is a demand among employers who are often having to export or import workers. And we've just begun to develop with Kanehunamoku Voyaging Association and Kailua High School a potential pathway from high school into college. We're also working with formerly Cal Maritime, now Caltech, which is our closest maritime institution, on a transfer pathway from the associates into a bachelor's program for our students.
Okay, thank members. Any other questions? Senator DeCourt.
Artis, since you're here, just to be clear, this is to fund a study, not the actual apprenticeship program?
So it's largely for the study, so we get the concrete data from employers as well as concrete pathways so that we provide the best training and multiple levels so that if there's a level that they can do in high school and then come out for certain jobs with that versus the associates versus the bachelors. So it's that larger study and the data for that. And then part of that will be piloting the initial program through Windward and Kailua High School.
How much of the funds is going towards the study?
The bulk of the fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And they'll be left over in order to go ahead and implement?
That is the hope, that part of it would go towards the pilot itself. We'd like to do some short-term credentials with the students as we're doing it to build up their ability to be labor ready, like boating safety, those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the end of our agenda. I'm going to recess and go into decision making. Calling the Education Committee back to order for decision-making, starting off with House Bill 1605. This is the Human Community Resilience, appropriate funds to the University of Hawaii Manoa Tropical Agriculture. The recommendation is to blank out the appropriations amount on page 3. The date is already defective. We don't have to do that. And I would like to see a little bit more data on how these funds and funding actually result in actual decreases in what we're trying to achieve. But yes, we'll blank out the amount and pass as an amendment. SD1, chair votes aye.
Members, HB 1605 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair is excused. Senator Fukunaga is excused. I vote aye. Senator DeCourt.
Aye.
Chair recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And for Senate Bill, I keep saying that, for House Bill 2171, this is engaging the University of Hawaii to engage in enterprise-related activities for educational purposes. Recommendation is technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency. The date is already defective. And I hope that we will get a little bit more clean, tightened language up as we move forward into Ways and Means and possibly to a conference. Any discussion? Hearing none, Chair votes aye.
HB 2171, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any member voting no? With the excuse of Senator Fukunaga and Senator Kidani for this and all others, Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bills 1873, House Draft 2. This is relating to the Board of Regents. This is a whole bunch of, retreat, exempt from retreat. Okay, recommendation is to change or to include, instead of being just one retreat a year, we would put 1 6-hour retreat per year. And the date is already defective. We don't have to change the defective date to another defective date, do we?
In this case, you're already creating an SD.
Yeah, oh, okay, if we weren't creating SD, we would, okay, I see, okay. So again, recommendation that we add in a 6-hour exemption once a year instead of just an exemption once a year, because that exemption could be a whole week. So, any discussion? Hearing none, Chair votes aye.
Members, HB 1873 HD2, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any member voting no?
No vote.
No for Senator DeCourt. Chair recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Members, got to go back to House Bill 1605. The appropriation is already blanked out, and so we are going to defect the date, so it'll still be an SD1. So defect the date to 7/31/2055.
Okay, so that was HB 1605.
Yes,
right?
the first one.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments.
No, I think this is.
Anyone knows? Okay, Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are on House Bill 1952, authorizing issuance of GEO bonds for improvements to the University of Hawaii Tropical Agriculture Human Resource for the Kauai Extension Station. Recommendation is as is, because the appropriation is already blanked out and we already have a defective date. So we need effective date, so an SD1 within, again, the same defective date, July 31, 2055. Chair votes aye.
Members, HB 1952 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair's votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
Great, thank you. Senate House Bill 2005, House Draft 2, establishes a statewide language access and education workforce development program. The Senate bill is already moving over. However, we go ahead and send this out to Ways and Means in case something happens. We will defect the date. Any discussion? The effective date is to July 31, 2055. Hearing none, Chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2005 HD2, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 2139 in relating to invasive species. This is for the Queen Island longhorn beetle. Recommendation is to amend to a defective date, July 31, 2055. Chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2139 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, 2158, House Bill relating to the University of Hawaii to maintain and publish standardized program level data for each academic program. Recommendation is technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency, effective date to July 31, 2055. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2158 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendment. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
House Bill 2338, House Draft 1, relating to the University of Hawaii Community College Promise Program. Recommendation, members, is to insert that the Promise Program will cover approximately 95% of the direct costs, therefore allowing for us state funding to be able to fund more students. Is for the Promise Program. There'll be buy-in, and I think when people have to put in monies and make an investment in themselves, that they will get probably more, what am I saying, commitment. Okay, any discussion on that item? Members, hearing none, chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2338 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
House Bill 2339, House Draft 1. This is relating to the revenue bonds for the University of Hawaii. Recommendation is to defect the date to July 31, 2055. That's all the amendments. So chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2339 HD1, Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
And finally, House Bill 2416. This is relating to a Maritime Youth Apprentice Pathway Program. The recommendation is for technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency. If we didn't blank out appropriation already, we will, and the effective date, July 31, 2055. No discussion, members, chair votes aye.
Members, HB 2416 HD1, Chair's recommendation passed with amendments. Chair votes aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? With all others voting aye, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.